The little girl wrapped her arms around my legs and said, "Are you my other mommy?" And that's when I knew. My boyfriend had a secret life. Let me back up. Not too far, just enough for you to understand how deep the lie ran. Ethan told me he was dying. Stage 4 lymphoma. Diagnosis came out of nowhere, he said. I remember the exact moment. We were in bed, wrapped in the soft cocoon of our Sunday morning ritual, bad coffee, and worse true crime podcasts. He paused the audio, looked at me like someone who had rehearsed sorrow, and whispered, "There's something I have to tell you." I held him. I cried harder than he did. Within days, he moved into my apartment, said he couldn't handle the treatments alone, said I was the only person who made him feel calm. It made sense. He had no close family, just a few burned bridges from past friendships. I took a leave from work, started cooking clean meals, drove him to appointments, read medical articles I barely understood. He showed me his pill bottles. They looked legit. He'd disappear twice a week for treatments, and when he came back, he looked pale, sweaty, exhausted. He even threw up once, right on the bathroom floor. I scrubbed it clean while he cried on the edge of the tub and told me I was his angel. The first cracks showed 2 months in. His phone glitched during an iOS update. We'd been sharing location for months. He'd insisted on it, said it made him feel safer. But after the update, his dot appeared somewhere unexpected. Presidio Heights. Not the hospital, not the pharmacy, a residential neighborhood. I thought it was a bug. Shared location glitches weren't new, right? I clicked on the pin. It hovered over a small green park, with a daycare next door. I didn't say anything, just waited until Thursday, his next treatment day. I watched the dot again. Same place, only this time it stayed there for 3 hours. I screenshotted it, timestamped it, then drove out there the next morning under the excuse of needing fresh air. I didn't see him, but I saw a little girl playing in the sandbox, alone, supervised by a bored teenager scrolling her phone. She had Ethan's exact dimples. My heart hiccuped, but I still doubted myself. Until the day of the school fundraiser. Ethan said he was having an especially rough day. He was in bed, sweaty, eyes half-lidded, said he needed silence. I kissed his forehead, made him soup, and tiptoed out for errands. Then I got the text from an unknown number. "Your man looks pretty healthy for someone who's dying." Attached, a photo of Ethan, standing outside a school, holding a little girl's hand. They were smiling. She was holding a paper crown, and in the background, there was a handmade sign taped to the glass door that read, "Daddies and Donuts Day." I couldn't breathe. I texted back, "Who is this?" No reply. When I got home, Ethan was curled on the couch, blanket over his face, saying he'd just crashed hard. I didn't say anything. I didn't sleep either. 2 days later, I faked a work meeting and drove back to that same daycare, same time, same crown-making table inside by the window. This time, Ethan wasn't there, but the little girl was. She saw me through the gate and ran over like she recognized me. "Hi," she said. "I like your shoes." I blinked. "Thanks." Then she tilted her head and whispered, "Are you my other mommy?" Time froze. "Sorry," I said, my voice thin. She pointed to my shirt. "You smell like Daddy's bed." I felt my stomach drop. And before I could speak again, a woman stepped out of the building, tall, blonde, wearing scrubs. She froze when she saw me. The child turned and shouted, "Mommy!" But the woman didn't look at her. She looked at me and said, "You shouldn't be here." I opened my mouth to ask who she was, but she was already walking over, fast, deliberate, like she knew exactly who I was and exactly what I was about to ruin. She reached the gate and planted herself between me and the little girl like a wall. "Inside," she told the girl. "But I want to show her my drawing." Inside, now. The little girl's face fell, but she obeyed. She didn't even glance back. The daycare aide took her hand and guided her through the doors. And then it was just us. Me and the woman I was supposed to never meet. "You're Maddie," she said. Not a question, a flat statement, like a diagnosis. I blinked. "How do you—" "I know a lot," she said. "Unfortunately, just not soon enough." She looked me up and down, not with judgment, but with something worse, recognition. "You didn't know," she said. "No," I whispered. I thought he was sick." She let out a dry, broken laugh. "Right, the cancer." She sat down on the concrete bench beside the gate, like she'd been holding that weight too long. "I'm Julia," she said. "I'm his ex, though I use that term loosely, considering he's been sleeping in both our beds." I didn't move. Couldn't. "Let me guess," she said. "You got the lymphoma story. Sweats, nausea, emotional detachment, but just enough intimacy to make you feel special." I nodded. She rubbed her face, exhausted. "I got leukemia 3 years ago. Same playbook, same meds. He even faked lab reports." I sat beside her. Not because I wanted to, because my knees gave out. "Is she his?" Julia nodded. "Her name's Callie. She's 4. She's the reason I believed him for as long as I did. I wanted her to have a father." "And he told her?" "That you were someone special," she said. "But I don't think he meant to blur the lines that much. Kids pick up more than you think. She's heard him say your name in his sleep." I swallowed. "She called me Mommy?" "I know," Julia said softly. "It's not your fault. You didn't lie to her. He did." I looked over. "Are you still with him?" She snorted. "Not since I found his shared location was syncing to your apartment 2 nights a week. I thought it was a bug. I even made him check his phone settings. He said it was a loopback error." My jaw clenched. "I believed him," she said. "He had an explanation for everything. Always calm, always gentle, always just enough sad eyes to keep me from asking the next question." I nodded slowly. "That's what he does. He curates guilt." She turned to me, eyes sharp now. "Did he ever take you to the emergency room?" "Yes." "Let me guess. He told you to wait in the car." I blanked. Julia laughed bitterly. "He told me the same thing. Said the hospital didn't allow visitors due to policy. Said they'd call me if anything happened. Once, I waited for 6 hours outside while he sat in a Starbucks down the street." The nausea hit hard. "He had a second phone," I said. "I found it once. Claimed it was for his medical apps." Julia nodded. "He used it to call women like us. Separate threads, different stories. Once, I caught him with a saved contact named Chemo Nurse. It was actually a bartender." I buried my face in my hands. "How many of us are there?" I asked. "I know of 4, she said. "You, me, one in Oregon. He said he was relocating for treatment. Another in Sacramento. He told her he was a single dad whose wife died of bone cancer." "And they all believed?" "He's very good at sounding broken," she said. "And we all wanted to be the person who helped put him back together." We sat in silence until Julia stood up. "There's something else," she said. "You need to see it." She pulled out her phone and tapped open a text thread. A message from Ethan, from this morning. "Staying at Maddie's tonight. She's starting to figure it out. Might have to do the breakdown act again. Don't call. I'll message from the burner." My mouth went dry. But that's not what matters, she said, swiping to her calendar. She pointed at an entry from a week ago. Callie School Orientation, 2 p.m. Below it, a notification. Shared location, Maddie's apartment. Arrived 1:59 p.m., departed 2:47 p.m. My stomach twisted. That's when he told me he was getting a transfusion, I said. He made me drive to Whole Foods while he rested. Julia's face paled. That's not the glitch. What? She tapped again, pulled up the Google Maps timeline. It had stored screen recordings. She hit play. Ethan in a bedroom, my bedroom, camera tilted downward, but not enough. In the reflection of the mirror, Callie, wearing my hoodie, sitting on my bed, and whispering, "Mommy said this is our new house." She said what? I whispered, but the words came out hollow, like I was listening to someone else's life disintegrate through a speakerphone. Julia just handed me her phone again and hit rewind. The recording played back. Callie, tiny and soft-spoken, sitting on the edge of my bed in my hoodie, her feet dangling. She looks up toward the camera and says it again. "Mommy said this is our new house." Julia paused it. Her finger hovered over the timestamp. 9:17 a.m. "I was at work," I said. "No," Julia replied gently. "You were on your Target run, remember? You told me earlier, the morning he said he didn't feel well enough to come." "That's right. I left him home alone. I even bought him the organic ginger chews he liked. I told the cashier I was lucky to have such a fighter for a boyfriend. But while I was buying nausea remedies, he brought his daughter into our bedroom and let her believe. What does she think I am?" I choked. Julia shook her head slowly. "I don't know, but I do know what she's being told." She opened her notes app. A log, bullet points, all from Callie. Things she said at home, at school, in her sleep. "Mommy Maddie's house has better pillows. I want to live with both my mommies. Daddy says Mommy Julia is too loud." "I started writing them down when they didn't make sense," she said. "When she started talking like she lived with you, like she remembered things I knew she'd never experienced." My head was spinning. "You think he's implanting memories?" Julia nodded grimly. "Not intentionally, but little kids don't need consistency to form attachment. They need repetition. And he's clearly been letting her stay over when you're not home. Which means," I said slowly, "that my place isn't just a lie to me. It's a second home to her." "She thinks she's being protected," Julia said. "She thinks she's being introduced." My vision blurred. And then a terrifying thought pierced through. What if she is? Julia's eyes met mine. I asked myself the same thing. We both sat in silence, air heavy with implication. He wasn't just cheating. He wasn't just faking cancer. He was creating a story, a parallel life where I was already in it. A replacement, a reset, a curated second family built on swapped weekends and silent kids. And I hadn't even noticed. My phone buzzed. Ethan. Text. "Hey babe, just saw your note about therapy. I'm proud of you for going. Can we talk when I get home? Big hug." My skin crawled. Julia read over my shoulder. "Therapy?" I shook my head. "I haven't had a session in months." She leaned in. "He's setting up your exit narrative, making it look like you're spiraling." Then, almost reflexively, I pulled open my calendar. I never use it for appointments, but Ethan did. He'd begged me to sync up so he could help manage the chaos, claimed it helped him feel in control during treatment. I opened the shared calendar, scrolled, and stopped cold. There were dozens of entries I'd never written. Maddie panic day. Maddie overreacted, Target meds. Maddie cried in Trader Joe's. Maddie meltdown, blame shift risk. Each one neatly color-coded, each one tagged with my initials. What the fuck? I whispered. Julia grabbed the phone from me. These aren't notes. These are defense exhibits. He's building a timeline of your instability, in case he needs to paint you as unwell. Why? I croaked. Why go that far? Julia stared down at the calendar, her face going pale. Then she tapped open one future entry, a week from now. Time blocked, 2 p.m. Location, my apartment. Title, Maddie Breakdown, Remove Callie, recorded. My breath caught. He was planning to film me losing it. And then what? Say I was jealous? Say I lashed out? Say I couldn't handle motherhood? Julia looked up at me. You were never the affair, she said. You were the upgrade. And then my phone buzzed again. New notification. Shared location. Active. Ethan's dot pinged. He was 5 minutes away. And he wasn't alone. Callie's dot was next to his. The dot pulsed closer. 4 minutes away. 3. I stood frozen in my hallway while Julia's voice echoed behind me, calm, clinical, urgent. You need to get her out of there, now. He has my key, I whispered. Then don't be there when he uses it. We moved fast. I shoved my laptop, passport, flash drive, and burner phone into a tote bag. Julia grabbed her keys and looped her arm through mine. We were halfway down the stairwell when the front door of my building buzzed. He was downstairs. He didn't text. He didn't call. He just buzzed once. Then again. Then silence. We crouched in the stairwell just beneath the landing, out of view, listening to the quiet click of the main entrance unlocking. His footsteps were casual, light. He was humming. Fucking humming. We waited, breathless, until we heard the second set of keys, mine, slide into my lock. Click. Open. Then, Callie, sweetheart, you remember the bookshelf rules, right? No climbing. Her tiny voice answered, Okay, Daddy, but can I sit on the couch? Of course, he said. You love it here. Julia's grip tightened on my wrist. I wanted to scream. I wanted to kick down the door and drag him out by the collar. But Julia shook her head. Not now, she mouthed. He's building the narrative. Let's make sure he doesn't get the footage. She pulled out her phone, opened a screen recording app. Wait, I whispered. You still have the nanny cam? She nodded grimly. I never turned it off. We slid back down the stairs and out the side exit. 30 minutes later, we sat at a Panera parking lot across town, watching the footage stream to Julia's phone in real time. The living room view was clean, wide angle, silent. Callie sat cross-legged on my couch, still in her school clothes, swinging her legs. Ethan entered frame, dropped his keys into the bowl I kept by the door, and pulled out his phone. He glanced toward the camera once, just a flicker. Then he crouched in front of Callie and said softly, Sweetie, do you remember what we talked about? She nodded. Can you say it for me again, just like we practiced? I felt my blood go cold. She looked into the air, like searching for a prompt. And then she said, Mommy Maddie yells sometimes. She says she doesn't want me here. Ethan smiled. Perfect, honey. He gave her a sticker from his pocket, a tiny golden star. She's going through a lot, he said, patting her head. You're so brave for helping me. Julia's hand trembled on the phone. We watched, horrified, as he coached her through 3 more lines. Mommy Maddie said I'm not her real daughter. She said I'm a burden. She said she misses when Daddy was sick because he needed her more. my mouth filled with bile. "He's coaching her for a custody case," Julia whispered. "But we're not even married," I said. "You don't have to be," she said. "If he convinces someone that you acted as a maternal figure, he can file a claim for domestic partnership and seek emergency custody if he alleges you're a danger to the child." I stared at the screen, at my couch, at her face, at his hand on her knee as he whispered more poison into her ear. "She's just helping him," I said numbly. "She's 4, Julia said. Of course she doesn't." We kept watching. He gave her juice, sat beside her, and said it. "This will be our real house soon, baby girl. Mommy Maddie just doesn't know it yet." Julia covered her mouth. Then Ethan stood, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. That's when I knew. He'd seen it the whole time. He knew Julia never disconnected it. He wanted us to watch. Julia's phone buzzed. New message. From Ethan. "You always were better with screens than people. Enjoy the show." "You made this mess, Jules. Now Maddie gets to clean it up." He followed it with a photo of the 2 of them, him and Callie, on my bed. Captioned, "She called me Mommy." I dropped the phone, and the room started spinning. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't crying. I'd gone past that. My whole body was in free fall, and my mind was splitting itself in half just to process one word: Mommy. He'd made her say it, and now he was weaponizing it. "Turn it off," I said to Julia, but my voice didn't sound like mine. "I can't. Just turn it off." She did, but the silence was worse. He was in my home with a child who thought I was her other mom, prepping false testimony for a psychological takedown that hadn't even begun. He wasn't just grooming her, he was framing me. Julia gripped the steering wheel like it could anchor her to the earth. "We need to go to the police." "No," I snapped, "not yet. If we go now, it's my word against his, and a 4-year-old coached to look like I've traumatized her. He's counting on that. He wants me to panic." "Then what?" she asked. "We film back." And I meant it. That night, I returned home. Alone. He'd left, of course. Left it spotless. No child-sized shoes, no toys. Only the faint trace of her cereal bowl in the sink and 1 crayon under the couch. I didn't touch anything. Instead, I planted 3 cameras. 1 in the hallway, 1 in the kitchen, and 1 pointed directly at the front door. Then I set a voice-activated recorder inside the planter next to the coat hooks. I baited him. I texted, "We need to talk. I'm sorry I panicked earlier. I just need the truth." 2 hours later, he knocked, softly, like he was the one being wronged. I opened the door. He was clean-shaven, hoodie, sad eyes, manipulator's uniform. "I'm so glad you reached out," he said, walking inside like the air already belonged to him. "This whole thing's been confusing for all of us." He glanced around. "Where's Julia?" "I don't know," I said. "She said she didn't want to be in the middle anymore." He exhaled, feigning relief. "I'm glad," he said. "She's been unstable lately." Record. He made himself tea in my kitchen, sat on my couch, then, casually, he dropped it. "I've been advised to prepare for a possible claim," he said, voice silky, "if things get messy." "What kind of claim?" "Callie," he said, sipping slowly. "She's attached to you. It would be wrong to just yank that away from her, especially now." "You mean after you made her call me Mommy?" He flinched, but barely. "But I didn't make her. She chose it. You practiced lines with her." "She's 4, he said calmly. "You're interpreting. You always interpret. That's why we're here. You don't remember things the way they actually happen." He said it like a lullaby, like I was crazy, like I was the problem. "You're gaslighting a woman and a child," I snapped. "I'm protecting her," he countered, "from chaos. You know how impressionable kids are. She needs a stable story." I stood, shaking. "You lied about cancer. You lied about living with me. You lied about being a parent. And now you want to paint me as the danger?" His eyes sharpened. "I never said danger. You did." I froze. That's when I knew. He was recording me, too. He wanted me to explode, to scream, to panic, to break down. So I smiled and walked to the door. "You need to leave." He stood calmly. "You know, I always knew you'd fold," he said. "It's in your nature. You panic, you spiral, you build narratives. That's what you're doing now." I opened the door. He stepped into the hallway and turned back one last time. "I'll see you in court, Maddie." Click. I shut the door. And then I sent everything, the full recording, video footage, and a Google Doc Julia had built titled Memory Manipulation Timeline, to 3 people: a custody lawyer, a therapist who specialized in coercive parenting, and a reporter. Because I wasn't waiting for court. I was building a case in public. And I had just received a DM from someone named Tina V. Seattle with a subject line that made my blood run cold. He did the same thing to my daughter. She called his ex Mommy, too. Tina's message came with 9 attachments: photos, PDFs, voice notes, receipts. I sat frozen on the floor while the files loaded. Julia leaned over my shoulder, eyes wide as each thumbnail populated. First, a school drawing, crayons on printer paper, a stick figure man labeled Daddy, 2 women, Mommy 1 and Mommy 2, and a little girl named Lucy. In the corner, a pink house with a heart over the door. "That's not mine," Julia whispered. "That's not my kid." And yet, it was identical. Another child, another drawing, another lie. Next file, a screenshot of a Google Calendar, eerily similar to mine. Color-coded entries like Lucy anxiety, blame Mom 1. Mommy 2 bedtime equals better. M1 fight replay at 3 p.m., record mood. He was tracking Tina and her daughter like subjects in a psychology study. Tina's message read, "I thought I was crazy. I thought I was overprotective. Then I found the recordings, the calendar entries, and the burner account where he logged each time Lucy said mommy, but not which mommy." Then came the kicker, a court document from a 2021 emergency hearing where Ethan, going by E.J. Varner, filed a claim for partial custody of Lucy, claiming he'd acted as a co-parental figure with primary bond. He lost. Why? Because the judge reviewed text messages Tina submitted, messages where he coached Lucy to tell school staff that Mommy too picked her up more often, even when she didn't. "I thought it ended there," Tina wrote. "I didn't know he'd start over. New name, new woman, new daughter." Julia looked at me. Her voice was hoarse. "He's trying it again, with Callie." "He isn't trying," I said. "He's already started." That night, I uploaded everything into a Dropbox folder, /parallel mothers. I color tagged each victim. Maddie, me, Julia, Tina, unconfirmed Portland, unconfirmed Minneapolis. I included calendar evidence, nanny cam footage, audio recordings, Tina's court files, school reports, and the photo of the second child calling me Mommy. Then I sent it to my lawyer with a subject line: shared delusion or coercive manipulation, building a pattern. She called me 10 minutes later. Her voice was tight with fury. "We have more than enough for an injunction," she said. "Maybe even criminal charges, especially with the minor involved." I asked her what the next step was. Court, she said, but not just civil. This man is playing psychological chess with children, and coercing identity confusion in minors is a line most family judges do not cross lightly. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and thought about every time I had tucked him in, fed him soup, let him cry into my shoulder, believing he was dying. He wasn't dying. He was rehearsing. 2 days later, I served Ethan with papers. Julia delivered them herself at his new girlfriend's doorstep. Yes, new. She messaged me an hour later. He answered the door holding a toddler, different kid, new woman standing behind him. He looked startled, but not scared. He took the envelope, said nothing, and shut the door. That afternoon, the reporter I sent the file to published her first piece. When she called me Mommy, how one man weaponized illness, identity, and children to manipulate women. Within hours, it went viral. BuzzFeed picked it up. Reddit exploded. Women began sharing their own calendar entries, photos, screenshots of toddlers saying things they shouldn't know. He didn't groom women. He groomed families. And in the center of it all, Ethan. Or EJ. Or James. Or whatever he was calling himself now. The final blow came in the form of a voicemail from Callie's school director. Soft, nervous voice. Hi, Maddie. I'm not sure if this is the right number, but Callie's been very confused lately. Today, she asked if she should call you Mommy in front of the judge. She said, quote, Daddy said the more I say it, the more I get to stay. We're concerned. Please call us back. Julia and I listened to it 3 times. We didn't speak. We didn't have to. Because we both knew this wasn't over, but it was about to end. The courtroom was small. No grand drama, just neutral carpet, humming fluorescence, and the soft rattle of paper as attorneys shuffled evidence like it was just another Thursday. But for me, it was war. Ethan sat across from me at the respondent's table, freshly shaved, in a slate gray suit that made him look harmless. He kept glancing at Callie, who was seated quietly next to a court-appointed child advocate with a juice box and a stuffed cat named Pickles. She waved at me when I walked in. "Hi, Mommy Maddie," she said. A soft gasp rippled behind me. The judge raised an eyebrow. Ethan stiffened. My lawyer leaned in. That's it. That's the moment. But we weren't done. Julia walked in next. She carried a thick folder of color-coded evidence and didn't even look at him. Behind her, Tina. Yes, Tina flew in. She brought her original court ruling, sworn testimony, and 3 other women she had found on Facebook. We were no longer exes. We were witnesses. The hearing lasted 4 hours. The highlights? Ethan claimed I had manipulated Callie and created fake documents. My lawyer played the nanny cam footage. Tina provided a pattern of behavior that matched exactly what he had done with her daughter. The judge asked Callie if she understood who I was. Her reply? She's one of my mommies, the bedtime one. Julia wept silently beside me. In the final 20 minutes, the judge did something none of us expected. She requested a private sidebar with Callie's child advocate. Then she returned to the bench and said, "This is no longer just a custody consideration. This is a case of parental alienation and psychological manipulation of a minor across multiple households. Mr. James, or whichever name you're using now, you are hereby forbidden from contacting the child without court-appointed supervision, effective immediately." Gasps, mine included, but the judge wasn't done. Additionally, the court recognizes a pattern of coercive behavior and fraudulent misrepresentation involving vulnerable parties, including medical deception, manipulation of educational records, and identity confusion involving minors. Then she leaned forward and said, "We're forwarding this file to the district attorney." Ethan's face didn't just fall, it cracked. He looked at me. For the first time, he didn't smile. He just shrunk. Outside the courtroom, Callie ran up to me again. This time, she didn't say anything. She just held up her drawing, a new one. Just one mommy holding her hand. No Ethan, no pink house, just us. And in the corner, a little heart. I knelt down and asked, "Do you know who I am now, sweetheart?" She nodded. "You're safe," she said. Julia and I walked out together, flanked by Tina and 2 other women we hadn't known existed 2 weeks ago. We weren't just survivors of a breakup. We were the ones who stopped him, for real this time. The podcast that had been quietly watching our case reached out again. They wanted the series to be rebranded. Julia suggested the title. We all agreed. She called me Mommy. It was the most honest thing that came out of all his lies. Because we did the parenting. We showed up. And in the end, we didn't just expose him. We rewrote the story.